Alrighty. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for coming to this incredible webinar that we have in store for you all. This is our July Building Greater Baltimore Momentum for Equitable Climate Solutions webinar series, and we're going to be talking about energy efficiency and public health. And who better to talk about what's going on in our region than Green and Healthy Homes CEO Ruth Ann Norton, Senior Associate at RMI, Ashita Gona, and the Deputy Director and General Counsel at CCAN, Anne Hathaway. If we were in person, I'd have you guys give them a virtual round of applause. We are super honored to have them here with us today. So what I'll start out with is just giving you an overview of our agenda. We'll talk a little bit about GBCS. If you're new here, they'll give their presentation. As usual, we'll open it up for Q&A. We know you all have lots of questions. If we have time, because we have run over with questions alone before, if we have time, we'll do breakout sessions, and hopefully we'll have some time to share the highlights from the breakouts that you all will do. And then we'll close right at 1. So for those of you all who are new here, GBCS is a platform that is a grassroots initiative. It's organized by a committee of professionals from Morgan, the HBCU Environmental Justice Tech Collaborative, Baltimore Green Space, Baltimore Metropolitan Council.
Yeah, because it's a longer trip.
Oh, I think I'll put you on mute.
We need to do laundry tonight, probably.
Hey,
Oops,
Liz,
sorry.
you can hear us. Oh,
Sorry.
thank-
I thought I was on mute. Sorry.
It's okay. Thank you.
No worries. So
I'm
again,
only hoping that it's a heat pump dryer that's being used there. That's all.
okay. So no worries. We're on Zoom. This session is it's a little formal, but more so informal so that we can all convene and just talk about what's going on and figure out collaboratively what are like the priority issues. So no worries. But if you guys could just double check and make sure that everybody's on mute, that'd be really helpful. So as I mentioned, GBCS is a grassroots initiative organized by local professionals at various institutions and organizations and agencies. And we're here just to ensure that we can maximize the economic impact around climate and environmental issues in the region and make sure that we can spread as much awareness on priority issues as we can. Want to give a shout out to anybody who's on the call that's a part of our amazing host committee. They really showed out last year. If you weren't there at the summit, it was amazing, and it couldn't have been done without this incredible group of folks here. Just a little bit about some impact that we've had since November of last year. To date, we've engaged over 740 event participants. We've surveyed 888 regional players on what their priorities are in the region, whether or not they think the region is prepared for climate change. And we are going to be releasing some key findings from those surveys pretty soon. And if we have time at the end, we will give you kind of a sneak peek on what we have planned for the 2025 summit. So stay tuned. And so I am actually at the end of my slides. And what I will do is hand it over to, again, Green and Healthy Homes Initiative CEO Ruth Ann. I just want to thank her so much for her early support of our initiative. I want to thank her and her organization for being a sponsor and a partner with us. And I want to thank her for being a featured speaker on this webinar today.
Confirming you're going to run the slides. You're putting the slides up. So that is wonderful if you could do that. Let me just say the summit, while Cree and the team are pulling the slides up, really appreciate that. The summit last year was fantastic. Anybody listening who wasn't there, who wasn't leaning in, and even wasn't sponsoring, should think about doing that. It is a great network of thinking. And it's been so great to see the summit team in places, including recently at Howard on a big national environmental justice stage to talk about climate. So we're just delighted to be here, along with my colleagues Ann Haverman and Ashita Gona. We're going to talk to you about something so critically important to our organizations for many reasons, including public health, affordability, and climate change. But we want to talk about zero emission heating equipment standards, either known as ZHEs or ZHES, depending on your flavor of the week on that, and the clean heat rules, and why they are so important that we have to move our legislature, we have to move our governor's office, and we have to move public will to meet the moment now, regardless of what is going on federally or across the landscape, because this is critical to mission. It's critical to GHHI's mission for healthy housing for sure, but it is mostly critical to the current and next generation, so that people can live with a great modicum of good health and opportunity. And there is really great opportunity in these standards to create savings. The New York Times yesterday put a tool up that talks about if you're currently on gas or oil heat, and you change to clean energy using heat pumps, will you save money? Maryland is one of the states that the New York Times said that the answer to that is clearly yes. So I'll share that with the team afterwards, but I encourage everybody to take that, to share that, the importance of that. Can you go to the next slide, please? As I said, I couldn't work with two more brilliant humans and really lovely women as professional leaders in this space. So I get to tag along in this and appreciate to be able to be in the universe with Ashita and Anne. She's bringing a large bit of national prominence of RMI to this, and the thinking that RMI does on policy and calculations and projections. Their research and their work across the nation is none better. And CCAN is an amazing advocacy organization for this region, covering Virginia and Maryland and other places that Anne can talk about, but just truly effective. My own organization works at the intersection of climate, health, housing, and equity to advance the health of individuals by addressing social determinants of health, opportunity, and equity through healthy housing. And we are really happy to be doing that work across the country, but here in our home of Maryland, where we run a whole house program that addresses health and safety issues like lead and asthma and injury, but also those energy issues that create better places, eliminating extreme heat and cold, and ensuring a better future and a more affordable future for our partners and community. You want to go to the next slide. So we have a really big impact of fossil fuels in Maryland, and this is something that Governor Moore and others are pledging to eliminate. The legislature itself, through Climate Solutions Now, set big goals to reduce this impact. But currently 71% of our homes burn fossil fuels through furnaces, water heaters, other building. We pay a price for that. As you can see, we have about $1.3 billion in lost value of health impacts. This includes kids who land up in the emergency room instead of the classroom. It has a massive effect on our older adults and their respiratory issues, but it's also neurological and cardiac. We have premature deaths from extreme heat, from exposures to nitrous oxide, benzene, carbon monoxide, and others. And this increased pollution is, like so many other issues, disproportionate in our communities of color and our disadvantaged, economically disadvantaged communities. But the good news is that if we move to a zero emission heating standard and make that our goal and aggressively pursue this, which we can do in partnership with utilities, but to move that, we will create savings for our residents, not only in their dollars, making their housing more affordable, but clearly in the opportunity cost of missing work because somebody's sick, or because the head of household is sick themselves, right, or the main earners. So we have real ability to drive this number down, and it's where we know, if we're realistic, where we need to go. So let's go to the next slide, please. So what does a zero emission heating equipment standard actually mean, and why are we pursuing it, right? Well, leader in chief, Wes Moore, listed as his number one thing in his executive order last year that was heralded by the administration at Henderson Hopkins, among many climate goals that the governor set and signed many pacts across the country with other governors supporting this work. It mandated that MDE develop a zero emission heating and equipment standard to ensure pollution-free spaces, space and water heating systems that are phased in economically, affordably, and thoughtfully over time. It's really intended to reduce those things that have extraordinarily bad impacts on our health, nitrous oxide, and greenhouse gases, but also benzene, as I said, carbon monoxide, that are coming from gas furnaces, from boilers and other propane heating systems. Most importantly, it supports the state climate goals that were expressed by the legislature and expressed by the governor. And the big challenge now is that regardless of our times we're in, these goals shouldn't change because they're critically important to reality. And so we need to build that public will, that public support very loudly to ensure that we're supporting these elected leaders to meeting the goals that they have set out and they have articulated. Let's go to the next slide. So we're also pursuing clean heat rules in this. So in that, you have the zero emission heating equipment standards plus clean heat standards, which means clean heat rules, right? All of this to eliminate fossil fuel emissions in buildings, in housing, in residences, where we get 40% of our carbon emissions come from buildings and residences. And Ashita led us in a paper about a year ago about cutting through the smog, which is a good resource also for this group to have and read. These complementary policies will enhance successful and equitable ZHIS implementation. And heat pumps are already strongly utilized in Maryland. The market for heat pumps is moving every day. And GHHI, the Building Decarb organization, and others are also doing a number of convenings to make sure that contractors know that there's a lot of opportunity, economic opportunity, in entering in this space. I always see contractors as a face of healthcare in the home by making our homes healthier. Can we go to the next slide? So we're working super hard to ensure an equitable transition. I'm proud to say those are two of my colleagues there, Micah Englund and Abby Cock, who are working hard on this. We're helping to ensure the implementation of this through community-driven solutions and input. We're aligning that with Maryland's housing and health priorities. We even have a community electrification advisory board helping to drive our work. We're hosting contractor education events with, as I said, BDC, Building Decarbonization Coalition, to prepare the industry for policy changes, for new technologies that help lead the future. And we're partnering deeply with MDE, MEA, DHCD, and their professionals who want and know that these things need to move forward. So hearing from you is critically important in that. And we're also socializing this issue, not only with the organizations across the state, but with residents. So residents understand the facts and that can experience this through better indoor air quality and a better affordable future. It's relevant to all of us. I think at this point, I'm going to be turning it over to Ashita if I'm right, but maybe let's go to the next slide and see if I'm correct on that. I'm not quite. We're going to share this slide and talk about why we can't wait. And for us at GHHI, our strongest argument is public health, is our future in our own quality of life, to live a better and more healthy life, to move upstream in our healthcare by eliminating fossil fuel heating equipment in homes that we know and we have seen now for over 30 years that drive people to the emergency room, to the hospital, that exacerbate the conditions like COPD, reactive airways disease, and certainly asthma, which, when exacerbated, either by extreme heat, extreme cold, or by excessive emissions in the home, can be fatal. And we have seen that too. Fossil fuel equipment releases over three times of the NOx pollution as power plants. Think about that in your home. You have over 3 times greater concentration in your home and in buildings than power plants produce. And as I said, this is linked to asthma, cardiovascular disease, but this impact on health and the impact of poor quality of housing really are impacting what we see in Baltimore as the black butterfly. Often are the most distressed communities throughout the state. And I was most recently in Allegheny County walking through housing deeply impacted by these issues. So this is not a Baltimore or Central Maryland issue. This is a statewide issue from Allegheny County to the Eastern Shore. But let me turn this over to Ashita and Ann to take you through the rest of the slides.
Thanks, Ruth Ann. I'm sure all of you are aware, if you've read in the news or felt at a personal level, that over the last year, Marylanders have paid a lot for their energy. And so affordability continues to be something that is really important when we talk about building electrification. Just like starting with Baltimore and some of the issues that Baltimore is experiencing with energy burden. So it has some of the highest individual energy burdens recorded nationally, up to about a quarter even of household income, which is quite stark when you know that like 6% or higher of income being spent towards energy is considered high energy burden. So that is quite significant. Um, Heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, heat pump technology, as Ruth Ann mentioned earlier, in Maryland have the potential to save uh, ratepayers on their energy bills, and it can be in the hundreds of dollars. And for folks that are using delivered fuels, which are very expensive, or electric resistance, which is quite inefficient, they can see up to even $1,000 of savings. And then I just wanted to note that at a national level and in Maryland, we're seeing gas prices increase significantly over the years. Projections are looking quite expensive. And so that just really highlights the importance of making sure that low and moderate income households that are already feeling the effects of high energy burden are able to get off the gas system and able to access technologies that provide energy efficiency and alleviate this energy burden that they are more at risk for. So with that, I will hand it over to Anne.
Thanks, Ashita. So from a climate perspective, these are also very important rules. Buildings account for 16% of Maryland's total greenhouse gas emissions. This is the direct emissions from the buildings itself. So the gas that you burn and the oil that you burn to heat your homes, that contributes 16% of Maryland's total greenhouse gas emissions. And the state is legally required to reduce these emissions 60% by 2031 and then achieve net zero by 2045. This is part of a bill that was passed in, I think it was 2022, the Climate Solutions Now Act, requiring 60% reductions by 2031. And to get there, we can't ignore the climate pollution that's coming out of buildings. And ZHES is one of the few tools that's specifically designed to reduce these emissions from homes and small buildings, and help us retrofit these homes and small buildings in a way that is affordable, that happens over time, that is manageable, and helps us deal with our climate problem. So let's go to the next slide, please. And I'll pass it back to Ashita.
Yeah, so we've been talking a lot about ZHES, and ZHES is really important, but this policy would not exist in a vacuum. One thing that is special about Maryland is that the state has already been working towards policies that encourage building electrification. So for example, let's start with BEPS, which is Building Energy Performance Standards. So these standards regulate buildings that are bigger than 35,000 square feet. So these are big buildings. Think, big residential, big commercial buildings. And basically, the standards regulate large building energy use and require improved energy performance over time that eventually would achieve zero net direct greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. So this rule is actually already in place. It's in its benchmarking phase. So buildings are reporting on their emissions right now. And that is going to set the stage for how the emissions are reduced down the road. The next thing I want to mention is at a local level, there's been a lot of traction around electrification friendly codes in Maryland. So for example, in Montgomery County, a law was passed that would require eventually that the county adopt an all-electric new construction code. And then in Howard County, they actually just passed an electrification ready code, which is starting to implement certain parts of new construction be amenable to electrification. So yeah, so there is traction there at the local level, which we have not seen in a lot of places, so it's special to Maryland. And then one more thing I want to mention too is I'm sure many of you have heard of Empower. This is a utility operated, surcharge funded energy efficiency program for the state. And I believe it was 2022, the state legislature passed a law that basically was like, we need to make Empower more electrification friendly. So just in April, Empower started providing more funding and services for electrification. And it's important because it's sort of setting the stage for where this very important program will go in the future. And that does provide more dollars for electrification for Maryland. And then, of course, we have ZHES and we have clean heat standards. And I'll just note clean heat standards, while ZHES regulates basically the sale of appliances, clean heat standards would regulate the clean heat services that utilities are required to offer. And so my point with all of this is that, as you can see between all these different policies, different sectors and through different mechanisms, we're sort of bringing together all of these opportunities to more fully electrify buildings in the state. So they all need to work together and they all would support the success of ZHES. All right, next slide, please. And then in terms of timeline, so as Ruth Ann mentioned, the clean heat rules are the combination of ZHES and clean heat standards. So where are we at with those? So on ZHES, at the end of last year and going into this year, MDE, the Maryland Department of the Environment, which is tasked with creating these rules, put out what's called a model rule. And that's just like a template rule. And they got a lot of feedback on it. And right now they are figuring out how to incorporate that feedback. originally, according like the EO, required that MD actually adopt a rule by the end of this year, but MD is not on that timeline. They do need more time to incorporate the feedback and create a rule that will take all that into account. So we're still waiting to figure out when exactly that might be. But then on the clean heat standards, I will say that they had a goal of putting out a reporting rule, which is similar to benchmarking. Like it basically requires heating fuel providers to report their data. They are starting the rulemaking process for that reporting rule. So that will probably take effect next year. And then next year, we'll also see a draft of the credit system that is the backbone of the clean heat standard. And I know this is a lot of information, so if you have questions, we're happy to take it on in the Q&A. And I will hand it off to Anne and on the next slide.
Thank you. And it's telling me that my internet is unstable. So if I can go off video if that keeps happening. So the technology is ready now. We've been talking a lot about heat pumps and electric water heaters. What are these? I mean, essentially, it's an air conditioner that blows both ways. It transfers heat from outside or inside and, either heats or cools your building. So it's because it's transferring the heat and not creating new heat, it's way more efficient than your gas or your oil boiler, and then it functions, essentially as an air conditioner. So it does both. Heat pumps and electric water heaters are already outselling gas furnaces nationally, and doing even better locally in Maryland. They work in cold climates, even below freezing. Some of the best uptake that we're seeing. Sorry, I think someone's off mute. So if you're speaking, you might want to mute yourself. Thanks. These work in cold climates. So some of the best uptake that we're seeing on heat pumps are up in Maine. So if these work in Maine, they're gonna work great in Maryland. As I mentioned, they provide heating and cooling in one device. So, it's your heater and your AC in one, and it's way more efficient than your heater and probably more efficient than your air conditioner just because it's, a newer model. And it reduces household pollution. It eliminates a gas explosion risk. You're not venting all these NOx and greenhouse gases and all this other pollution from your building. You are using zero emission heating equipment. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? The next steps are, so right now, as Ashita mentioned, we're in the policy design phase. MDE has been stakeholdering these rules and getting feedback and hearing from community members. So they are designing the policy to be, flexible and accommodate the needs of Marylanders, Maryland contractors, Maryland buildings, all the stakeholders that have weighed in throughout the process. They are doing, and we are also doing, robust stakeholder outreach and feedback. As Ruth Ann mentioned, GHHI and BDC are holding contractor convenings. They've had 2 so far, and there will be more, to hear from contractors, to hear from housing advocates. What do you need? How can this work in Maryland? And how can we do this in an equitable, affordable, and smooth way? We also are working, as Ashita mentioned, to advance strong complementary policies that create a healthy and resourced building electrification environment in Maryland. So making sure that these are all working together to help us achieve, zero emission heating in an equitable and affordable way across the state. And then we're also engaging in robust legislator education. While this is a rule and not a bill, we know, the General Assembly has been paying close attention to, high energy bills, and paying close attention to, our actions on building decarbonization throughout the state. So we need to make sure that they understand that this is a way to stabilize energy bills, introduce affordable and efficient equipment, and make sure that we do it in a way that is accessible to our lower income Marylanders. So those are our next steps, and I think that's the end of our presentation. We are more than happy to take questions. We just laid a lot out there. So happy to hear from everybody.
Thank you so much for this incredible presentation. I'm sure we have lots of questions.
Yep, and I think our contact is on the next slide, but we can share it as well. That's okay, don't worry.
So if you have questions, feel free to just come off mute and ask. Please raise your hand so that we can call on you, or feel free to drop the question in the chat. Sean, our wonderful host committee member.
Hi, this is really important to me. I actually work in the energy space. And the other thing I've done is work for, just volunteer for CARES program, where you'd see people coming in with no money to pay their bill. Their power was getting shut off, and they were often in low-income housing, which had really terrible energy efficiency. And so I love the fact that, GHCD is helping some of these people out, but it seems like there's a backlog to do it. And do you have ideas about how to bring that backlog up a lot, so that way more people are using that program?
I'm going to defer to Ann and Ashita to start the answer to that. Any thoughts on the backlog? I think here.
Sean, am I saying that right, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah. Are you referring to DHCD's low income program?
Right. The electrification and like renewal kind of. So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you would go in and like switch out HVAC systems, do some electrification, maybe even do some insulation. All of that stuff is fabulous, but it seems like it's really expensive to do that whole bunch of it, and that it's taking a lot of time to get it done.
Hey, Sean, can
Yeah.
I jump in on that one
Yes,
piece
please.
there,
Mhm.
if I may? Only in the sense that GHHI does this work. We do whole house work that includes full electrification. We are seeing costs have remained relatively stagnant even in the midst of the last couple of years on some of this, but by taking a more whole house approach on it. But I will say the one thing that really trips us up more than anything is getting the utilities to come and finalize the final hookup. That's the longest wait in the period. Getting the work done itself to switch out from gas or oil to clean heat actually moves along relatively well. But once that's done, whether the utility has to come and make that final switch, right? And that has been a slow process, and one that has been unintentionally or not, is really the problem, because then you're leaving people a bit in the lurch, and that slows the market demand. If, 3 neighbors did this and yet they couldn't get it switched over. So part of the work and advocacy we have to do at the Public Service Commission is when people do opt for this, because there's I think MDE or MEA just came out with its RFP for rebates and different things that are happening. There's going to be ways to make this affordable, but we have to also have the alignment and cooperation of utilities to do that changeover. And the other side of that is, getting enough contractor pool to take this work on, to be recommending it, to be experts at it. We're trying to do that. We saw that when we started the big, huge investments in lead hazard control in this country. We had to develop that workforce base. This one's an easier one. We just have to make sure that the contractors are properly incentivized to want to do it and not being led to a different direction with other incentives.
And I think also a key part of this is that the rules, the standards, ZHS would kick in at the time of equipment failure. So they wouldn't be going in and, replacing a fully operational, gas heating unit. It would be when your equipment fails, then, right now, starting in 2029, but again, the policy is being designed right now. But starting in a certain date, then you would replace it. You would replace that failed equipment with a zero emission heating equipment. So we wouldn't be going in and, taking fully functional equipment out. The state wouldn't be. It's just when your boiler goes out, you would replace it with zero emission heating equipment. So it wouldn't be this, huge onslaught, because these things can last, 10 years or so. It would be, a gradual replacement over time. And, making sure that we have the funding to do that would also, need to occur over time. So Ashita mentioned the Empower program. MEA has a number of programs, and they actually have a Clean Buildings Hub that they are creating with, resources and information and support, both for contractors and for building owners. So all of these things would happen in conjunction, and they would happen when your equipment fails. So I think that's a key thing that I wanted to emphasize.
Well, from my viewpoint, waiting until it fails is the wrong idea. Because people are at that point, they're going to get whatever they get, right? And they just want it fast. And if you're just bleeding energy for years and years, and yet you're at low income status already, I mean, there's a real need there. And we're paying for it one way or the other. And so I couldn't emphasize how much I think waiting for equipment to fail is the wrong idea. The other thing I would love to do is like grab a bunch of those window-based heat pumps and just hand them out to people. If they come in for energy assistance, they should walk out with one of those. That doesn't require electrification. It will do so much better for them. And I have one small unit in a window that is taking care of like 90% of what I need. And the other 10 I can just sweat out, right? So if we could make it really easy and really quick, we could get rid of a lot of these wait times for people and solve 80 to 90% of their problem.
Yeah, Sean, I'll just jump in and say, I believe you're referring to a company like Gradient. And for those of you that don't know, Gradient, I believe they're based out of New York. They do a lot of work in New York with heat pump window units, and they're actually looking at the Maryland market. They're really interested in doing more in Maryland. And yeah, it's a great technology, and we are in touch with them. And then to your question specifically about the DHCD program, it's actually a great question, because I would love to learn more about where their delays are coming from, because I think there might be some really innovative solutions. So it's a good reminder for us to, chat more with DHCD about that program in particular. So thank you for raising that.
Well, talk to the contractors. Because what I hear is there's a lot of paperwork.
Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, that I'm using a Medea, and they're excellent too. I don't have a big one versus the other, but New York bought like I think 10,000 of each, and we're handing them out. And it's, we ought to be as smart as New York.
I mean, we have to build a bit of demand here, but we also have to, on all of it too. I just shared the New York Times was to show people that it will help in the affordability issue that Ashita talked about during the slides. I think we've got to get capacity built. We've got to get the delays out of the system, which comes from public pressure and PSC pressure, and we've got to get market demand and understanding of the reality um, of long-term affordability. So
Liz, looks like you have your hand raised.
Sorry about being off mute early. I put in the chat that Howard County, I just found out today, it came in the county executive newsletter, and I haven't even read through it, but they've partnered with Switch, and they have creating a heat pump buying co-op, which, is probably not for the low income, but still, I just thought that, and then says they've vetted contractors. So,
I mean, I saw that. That's pretty cool, right? And I saw, I think, a post from the comptroller's office on this. I gotta say, it's pretty nifty when your comptroller, by the way, is pushing clean heat. And a really good thing to be lifting up. But this is what we also need to have happen, Liz, is this local actions, right? We do have a lot of control of what we have in our own jurisdictions to do things to move this market. Biggest thing right now is we have to be heard on this and not get drowned out by real pressure to kind of not be factual about this stuff and make sure that this is happening. But we ought to have, especially in our disadvantaged and low wealth communities, we ought to have every incentive we can. Because as I said earlier, it is just has this massive impact on health, coupled with all of the other challenges so important here.
Do we have any other questions? Anybody that wants to come off mute and ask a question, or anyone that wants to place anything in the chat? You guys are sleepy today.
Mid-July.
It's summertime, that's true. Well, if no more broader questions, what we can do is break off into a couple of breakout rooms, talk more intimately, get real about some conversations, and then we'll come back out with like 4-5 minutes or so and kind of like recap, give some highlights. I'll give you guys a sneak peek on some things we have planned for this year's summit in November, and we'll go back to working on this Wednesday.
Great.
So I'll do the breakouts now.
Great.
Gotta go to a breakout room. You're on mute, but this is a part of the
Can you throw me back in room 3? I meant to just close out the statement, but I hit, oh, I guess people are, okay, never mind. I didn't mean to leave the room. I just was trying to close out the message and I, sorry about that.
It's okay.
Welcome back. Everybody's just chit chatting, getting their last couple of words in. Here everybody is now. Welcome back. Welcome back.
I
Did
got cut
anyone,
off there, Trees, but I'll tell you about my experience, which has been great going to induction.
Okay, that'll be great to hear.
does anyone want to share any highlights from their breakout?
I'll share from our breakout. I think that not think, but Ruth Ann gave a lot of helpful information. And Julian, hope I'm saying this right. I'm gonna call you out, but just I enjoy the webinars because it's everyday things that we can do to help our health and help environment. So we were talking about decarbonization and heat pumps and ways to be affordable and just things that we can do every day with appliances to make things healthier and be more environmental friendly. So thank you, Ruth Ann, for sharing.
Yeah, just next up, when you're getting ready to replace, just replace the right way, right?
Yes.
I think Electrify America, when it dies, electrify is their slogan.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think rewiring's still out there pitching on getting rewiring done with a smaller group of things. But I did post earlier that New York Times thing, and I think it's fun to share with people because they can put their zip code in and see what's going to happen. And people do love those little quizzes and widgets and different things. But let me just share one thing if I can, Cree, from the is, we have a community advisory board in the East Baltimore community in what is kind of referred to as historic East Baltimore, who leads the decision making on how we are approaching electrification of housing. And we're working in communities that people told us would never move off of gas stoves or never move off of gas or oil heat. And almost universally, everybody's moving because the experience is so great. And we have people now who had grandkids with asthma, then the kids are reporting better. But even myself, who took a 270-year-old house and electrified it and went to clean heat, I like it better. Even my cooking side of it is better than I thought. So we got to get practical here, but we sure need the support in building these messages from individuals and communities to the legislature. And we also need you all who are so influential here to reach out to other environmental groups who are not prioritizing ZHEs and ask them why.
Well, it is 1 o'clock. What I will give you guys, if you weren't on our session last month, I'll give you guys a sneak peek into our plenary speakers for this year. So we're really excited to have the Secretary of the Department of Planning as one of our plenaries. She has a background in net zero master developments and planning, as well as green building, commercial real estate development. So she's like a really, really well-versed planner and also has a background in sustainability, which we love for our beautiful state of Maryland. Ava Richardson from the Baltimore City Office of Sustainability will be one of our plenaries this year. as well as former Mid-Atlantic Region EPA Administrator Adam Ortiz, who's now a Deputy Director at MDE, and Maryland's first ever Assistant Secretary for Environmental Justice will be one of our plenaries. So shout out to them for being ready to give you guys amazing plenary speeches and fireside chats and more. And just so you guys know, our summit this year is going to be on Monday, November 3rd. I can give you guys the link to register now if you want. It has literally only gone out to a few people so far because we just got it up last night. So this is true early access. So I'll put the link for the 2025 summit in the chat for you all. And I hope to see you guys in person in November. And we'll see you guys next month on our August webinar. Thank you so much.
Enjoy your
You.
Wednesday. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.